Welcome to our next lecture on Mesilat Yesharim. We got the fancy room tonight, so you have the nice fireplace background. And the library here is hopping. There's like community event outside the door, and there's some politician downstairs. So we got all kinds of men in dark suits walking around. So it's all cool here. But we got a nice room.
Are we at the end of 11 or are we on 12?
We are in the middle of, near the end of 11. We may actually finish 11 today. May, but we'll see. So we are about to start where he discusses, we just finished his discussion of the, I'm on the wrong page, of the trait. We were talking about character traits and achieving perfection in character traits. I guess I'm translating nikiyut as perfection right now, in doing it right. He discussed the character trait of gava, which is we can loosely translate as either pride or arrogance. So, and he said he's going to talk about its corollary, the opposite of it, anava, or humility. We're going to discuss that in an entire section that devoted to the discussion of humility. So he's leaving humility aside. And he's about to discuss anger. And let us now discuss kaas, anger. So yesh haragzon sha'amru alav. There are, so remember, just like when he talked about gava and pride, he talked about different types of manifestations of people that are prideful and arrogant. They're different types, right? So in a similar way, there are different types of people who are a kasan, or a person or a ragzon, a person who is quick to anger. So there is one type of angry person about whom it is said the following statement, which is a pretty remarkable statement. When it says in Kol hakoes ki'ilu oved avodas elilim, anyone who gets angry, it is as if he is worshiping idols. Now, there's a lot of different ways to understand that statement. But let's see how he understands that statement. In other words, what's the similarity between anger and worshiping idols? On the simplest level, the way I always understood it is that you're worshiping the idol of yourself. You know, if you get easily angry, right, it's, you think too much of yourself. But let's see how he says. So, hanichas al davar sheyasu neged ritzono. It's someone who gets angry on anything that happens or anything that is done in the way against what he wants, right? So mismalei chema, and he gets full of anger at shekvar libo bal imo, so much so that he doesn't even have, literally it translates to doesn't have his heart with him, meaning he can't even think rationally anymore. He gets so mad when people do things not the way he wanted it done, right? Right, and his whole sense of rationality is consumed. So v'hine ish kazeh, such a person, kedai lahachriv olam male, it is worth it for him to destroy an entire world if he had the ability to do so. Ki ein haseichel sholet bochal, because what he's doing makes completely no sense at all. So if someone gets angry that he didn't get his way and then he takes revenge by destroying the world, it's really hard not to segue into current politics, but I'll try not to. Maven Yavin, right? He who understands or she who understands will understand. And then just destroy things. He's like an animal that is just enraged and tearing and ripping at things without any thought process involved about what he or she is destroying. All of Nemar, about such a person, it is said, Toref nafsho biapo, a person who tears himself apart in his anger, right? Tears his own soul. Halemancha te'azav aretz, because of you should the entire earth be forsaken. Such a person in such a state can easily transgress every sin in the books, every single one, right? If his anger would lead him to that particular sin. Right? The only thing that is pushing him, the only thing that is motivating him is his anger. He's making decisions purely out of anger. When someone makes his decisions purely because he's mad, He's capable of any terrible and horrible thing. Wherever his anger takes him, that's where he's going to go. That's one type of angry person. And I think, we all have encountered such people. And it's, yeah. Have we encountered such people? I don't know. But we can imagine such people. We've seen them. We're aware of their existence, right? V'yesh kasan rachok mizeh. But there's also an angry person who's very different from that. A very different type of angry person. V'hu shelo al kol davar asher yivo'eu shelo kirtzono. Right? He doesn't get angry at just about every single thing, right? That happens, right? He's able to contain himself when things happen that he doesn't like, right? Im katan im gadol, whether it's a big thing or a small thing, right? However, ach v'hagio lahargish yirgaz v'igas kaskadol. But when he gets to his limit, what he can handle, he loses it, right? So this person is not an angry person in the sense that no matter what you do against him, he'll blow a stack. He can handle things for a while, but he gets to a point where he loses control of his anger. And this, we've probably come across such people. They're not always that way. You can have a nice conversation, you can disagree every once in a while, but that if you push his buttons a little too hard, he's going to go off the deep end, right? V'gam zeh ravada, and this is also very evil, right? This is what the rabbis call kasha lichos v'kasha lirtzos. A person who is difficult to get him angry, but once he's angry, it's very difficult to calm him down, right? To v'gam zeh ravada, this is also very bad, because he can make a terrible mistake and can do a lot of damage during those moments when he lost his cool. So when you make those mistakes, often those are kinds of mistakes that can never be fixed. The kinds of damage that someone does when he loses control is a damage that may never ever be able to be repaired. But you also have other people who are not quite as bad as number one or two, right? They're a little bit less. Shelo yichas al nikala, right? He won't get angry, right? On mild, on small things, right? Even when he does get angry, his anger isn't quite as big. It's a much more mild form of anger. And he's still able to think rationally while he's angry. However, he holds on to the anger. He just holds on to that grudge, right? He holds on to that anger and puts it in the back pocket, and it festers, right? So it's not as bad as the first two cases that we discussed. But this is still a person, so he's a little better off than the other guy, but he's still a guy that's holding on to that anger. He's not letting go of that anger, and it can still bring him to bad places and cause him to do things that are not right. And he's still a person who gets too angry, and because he allows the anger to change him, to make an effect on him, right? He won't let go. So it's still not in the right frame of mind. Still has not yet gotten rid of that that title of being an angry person. You have a level that even less than that, right? He's not as bad as number 1, 2, or 3. But here's a guy, it's hard to get him angry, so he doesn't go off the handle at the slightest provocation, right? And when he does express his anger, he's not trying to destroy things or smash things or devastate things. His angry reactions are little actions. Kind of reminds me of someone who we call it passive aggressive nowadays, right? Yeah. He's not going to smash the windows and throw things, across the room or punch people in the nose and break their nose. But the kama zago, how long does he stay angry? Rega belusa, just for a moment, he gets angry. Dahainu mishasha kasmis orabo bateva, right? So from the moment that the anger rises up within him, right, within his nature, until even the so it's like the lasting time between when you get angry and manage to calm yourself down. There's still that time in between when you can act irrationally. This is a person who's kasha lichos v'noaler. It says it's hard to get him angry. It's easy to calm him down. This is certainly a good place to be. Right? In other words, it's not perfect, right? But it's a better place to be than the first four. I guess it's not wouldn't be accurate to call it passive aggressive what we do today, but still, he is a person that can get angry, and even though he may not, like smash things or whatever, but there's still that moment where you could make decisions or do things despite others that are not proper, because a person's nature is to get angry. People, we naturally tend to get mad when things don't go our way. But imhu miskaber olav, right? And if you can overcome that anger to the extent shafilu b'shas hakas atzmos, that even at that moment when things are happening to you that naturally would get most people angry, right? Lo yivar harbe u'miskaber olav. You learn how to not get so burnt up with the anger, right? And you overcome it. Shafilu oso hakas hakal. Even that mild anger needs to be eradicated. That kind of person is certainly someone who deserves our praise. And the rabbis taught us Tola Eretz Al Belima, that when it says God hangs the earth in nothingness, earth is just hanging in space and nowhere. So it says it's a reference to God supports the earth al belima, over a person, amisha bolem piv b'shas meriva, as it's nutrikon. It's where the word belima is bolem piv b'shas meriva, which means someone who keeps his mouth shut during times of strife. So God sustains the earth. The Chazal, the rabbis were teaching us, God sustains the earth in merit of those people who keep their mouths shut when everyone else is screaming and yelling and fighting, right? So v'hainu shekvar nisora tivo b'kas, a person whose nature was stimulated by something angering, but but he's able to control himself, not allow that anger to control his behavior, and keep his mouth shut and not say something stupid. I mean, we can all go back in our lives to times when we were mad, or and we said something that we regretted. Hopefully there wasn't terrible, but there may have been times that we really did damage to relationships, to things, because so a person who can be bolin piv, who can overcome that desire to say something out of anger and keep your mouth shut, and I try, obviously I've made this mistake as much as anyone has, but I do try my best. If you're in a situation where your emotions are stirred and you're angry, upset about something, and you're not sure what to say, don't say anything. You don't have to say something. Wait till it calms down. You could think, and then try to say something constructive. So he really went through 5 levels, right? There's the level of the person who is just quick to anger and will become completely destructive every time he gets mad, right? Then there's the person who's not, it's harder to get him angry, right? But once you get him angry, he loses control, right? He has a boiling point, and then once he's over the top, right? And then the third level was a guy who's hard to get him angry, right? But once he's angry, it's hard to calm him down. And then the other one was a person who, he gets mad rarely, right? And usually calms himself down, but there's that moment where he's not quite in control, And then there's the person who can control his anger and not allow it to get to him, and not allow it to cause his behavior to do something destructive. However, above all of these levels that we just said, right, is to the level of perfection when it comes to the issue of anger, is midaso shel Hillel hazaken, is the trait that we attribute to Hillel the elder. Hillel the elder is the famous sage called Hillel, famous from the Mishnah, and it's called Hillel Hazakin because there were other sages that had the name Hillel later on in history. So he was Hillel Hazakin, Hillel the elder. He transcends all of the levels which we just described. Shekvar lo haya makbid al shum davar. He was the person who never got angry about things in the first place. It's one thing that we get angry, but we control ourselves and we don't let it control our behavior, and that's good. That's fine. That's a step in the right direction. But much better is the person who learns how to not get angry in the first place, how to, even when people slight you, to and I'm not saying it doesn't mean don't get upset, but don't get angry. And Hillel Hazaken was vafilu his orus shel kas lo nasabo, and with him, right, he wasn't even stirred to anger at all. Zehu vaday hanoki minakas mikol kol. That's a person who has reached the level of nikiut, of perfection, which is what we're discussing in this chapter when it comes to the issue of anger. So the hine, and behold, right? And some might think, well, you're supposed to get angry when it comes to holy things, right? When I see people, not keeping the Torah, or I see people denying the existence of God or some religious thing, that I'm supposed to get angry, right? People think that, that's when I should get angry. But says the Mesilat Yesharim that V'hinei this is not what the rabbis teach us. This is not what we're taught, right? Even when it comes to a dvar mitzvah, something that's a good deed, you're still not supposed to get angry. You have to stay away. Even if it's a teacher and a student, or a father and a child, a parent and a child, who, when the child does something wrong or the student does something wrong, and we know that very often that can stir anger in us, especially when they do things to spite us. It doesn't mean you shouldn't give them musar, right? This is a class in the Musar movement. Yesharim is you shouldn't rebuke them. Of course, you should correct them. Ela Yesharim, and you should go ahead and give whatever rebuke is appropriate, but do it below kas. Do it not in a situation of anger. Here he's giving some parenting advice that, of course, if the child does something wrong, he or she should be criticized, and they should be told they're doing something wrong. But it shouldn't come from a place of anger on the part of the parent. And if it is coming from anger, you need to calm yourself down first. The purpose and point is in order to teach them the right way. So if you hear someone or see someone doing something that you find objectionable from a religious perspective, it would be a similar thing, right? Like he said, you don't get angry at him or her, but from a place of love, you explain what you think they're doing wrong and how you think they could do something better. But it should never be out of a place of anger. V'yomar Shlomo, and Shlomo says, King Solomon said, "Al tevahel beruchach al lichos." Right, this is from Kohelet, from Ecclesiastes. Right, don't allow your spirit to become angry. Don't let it be hasty to anger. Because anger is in the lap of the fools. That's where it rests, and because anger leads to doing something stupid, right? Right? For anger kills the fool, right? And a foolish person, a silly person, jealousy makes him die. The rabbis teach this is a very famous saying from the Talmud, from Mesilat Eruvin, which it only really works in Hebrew because it's bekoso, bekiso, bekaso, right? Koso means in your cup, bekiso means in your wallet, and bekaso means in your angry. These are the three ways to get to know what a person is really like. Bekoso, how he is when he's drunk. Bekiso, what he does with his money. Is he generous with his money, right, or stingy? Bekaso is with his anger. It is the person that's quick to anger. So those are the things. In Hebrew, it fits because the three words are all similar: koso, kaso, and kiso, right? But the idea is, of course, important. And if you want to know who a person really is, these are the ways to know what a person is really like. So that's a discussion of anger. I'll stop for a second to have some vegetables, but also if anyone has questions or comments and so on. So here's a spot you can chime in.
So you can get angry, it's just controlling the anger.
Yes, and that's the next to best level. The best level is learning to not get angry in the first place.
Is that possible?
What about righteous anger?
What about what?
Righteous anger. For example,
well, he just said righteous anger you shouldn't act upon either, right?
Well, I know, but maybe you should. That's what I'm saying. Isn't there such a thing as righteous anger when you see something terrible happen and you get
not
angry?
According to what he just said.
Fair enough.
Now, this isn't the first time that he described a character trait in an ideal way, and we think to ourselves, well, maybe there should be exceptions to this rule. Like we talked about this when it came to forgiveness and other things and bearing a grudge. But let's take what he says. Remember, this is a book about ethics, so he might there may be place for anger, but from what he just said, no, there's no place for anger at all, right? If something is wrong, you should stop and think, what do I do? How do I handle this and do it in a reasoned way as opposed to from a response of anger.
Okay.
I'm
sorry.
Some people get angry when you don't get angry.
Yeah, you should get angry about this. How could you not be angry?
Yeah.
Well, you can quote Ramchal and say, listen, he says I'm not supposed to get angry.
Yeah. I think anger under his definition is like out of control, meaning your blood boils and you can't control what you're going to do next. That's what it feels like he's saying. Like you should learn to control the emotion itself. So it doesn't control you.
Yeah.
It's that that's key, is that the emotion doesn't control you. But if you can get to a place where when you see something, you might be upset about it, but it doesn't anger you in that kind of way. Like you might make you sad, that people are terrible, or it might make you, upset in a different kind of way, but not in an angry, not, I guess, like you're saying, like not kind of anger that motivates a behavior. It's just so when we see things happening around us, and it's more concentrated on things that are directed at us, right? Because a truly humble person is able to overcome anger, right? Because when somebody does something to us, we recognize, it's so really something wrong with them, and it's not personal, and we don't take it personally, and we try to learn whatever lessons we can to prevent these things from happening in the future, and we take it in a humble way. We learn the lessons, and we realize that getting angry at that person isn't going to accomplish anything or achieve anything. But
I think that is the question for me anyway, is how to deal with an angry person, somebody who has anger issues. Like I'll just be very candid. My sister has really bad anger issues. Like she gets so passionate, whether it's a political thing, but like she can't draw the line between passion and anger. Like she gets so mad at like anybody that would disagree with her, and that's just not helpful. Regardless of what side you're on or whatever, like you have to be able to be calm and have a conversation and, accept that some people aren't going to agree with you, and you have to like be able to cope with that. And so we've gotten into family issues because she just like gets so angry when people don't agree with her. And it's like, whoa, how do you even deal with this? Like,
it's irrational. Like, the world's not going to agree with you.
Right, exactly. It's just,
I don't know. I don't know. I mean, the Ramchal didn't give us any advice on how to deal with other people. He's giving us advice on how to change ourselves.
Yeah.
But how you change someone else, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if I ever figured out on anything how to change other people.
And it's not about changing them. It's about like, how do you handle yourself around someone that's out of control?
Yeah, I mean, the first key thing is you don't follow suit.
Yeah.
Someone has to, someone has to be the adult in the room, and that's really all you can do, because you can't control her.
Yeah, but again, it kind of describes like what he's describing here, which is like you don't come at it from a place of humility where you don't see things from the other person's side. Like, like you think your way is the only way to see something.
Yeah.
Did he say something like that? Because I feel like that's what I took from it.
Yeah. Well, if you're not unable to see things from other people's perspectives, anyone that does anything that disagrees with you, that
Oh yeah, it's very
it just
personal. It's about
makes you angry. It's all about you. Everything that happens. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
We'll do
because
therapy, we'll do therapy about your sister after that.
Right?
yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
I think most of us have learned by now that changing other people, if it ever happened in world history, it was
Yeah.
very rare and few and far between.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
I think people can change, but they have to
Yeah.
decide that they'll change.
I think
You
you only have to model your own ethics. So
I,
again, you have to slow anger and just
Yeah.
say, oh, what, are you okay?
yeah, I mean, maybe she'll learn, maybe she'll understand, but
Maybe she won't.
maybe
but
she won't.
But you can only control yourself.
Yeah. I mean, that's any other thoughts on anger? We're about to go to jealousy, which is closely related. Definitely closely related. So hakina. So jealousy, gam hi eina ela chesron yadia v'sichlos. Jealousy is similarly also foolishness. Remember, he ended his discussion on anger by saying that anger is the instrument or the motivator of fools, right? Because and that kind of flips back to the beginning of his discussion on anger, is that when someone is angry and that's motivating his behavior, he's going to do things that are destructive, not only to everyone around him, which is obvious, but even to himself, because he's going to be doing things purely out of anger and not that are reason, not. And kina, jealousy, is also a problem of it's a lack of knowledge. It's foolishness. All right. If I'm jealous that so-and-so has a fancier car than me, my being jealous isn't going to get me the fancy car, right? So I don't gain anything by being jealous of that guy, right? So and my being jealous of him isn't going to take the fancy car away from him, right? So jealousy is the emotion makes no sense, right? So it just makes me have a hard time sleeping at night, So what did I do? I lose a night's sleep. I don't get a fancy car, and he still has a fancy car. So I wake up in the same situation, or I don't wake up because right.
So, so
Yes, go ahead.
mine translates it as envy versus jealousy, and jealousy and envy are a little bit different because envy is the want of something somebody else has, and jealousy is kind of the fear of loss of something. Like usually you're jealous of a person being jealous that somebody flirted with their partner, or
Okay.
it's
well, my English translation says envy too. So I'll accept your comment, and I'm gonna call it envy. I hear you, but I always translate it. I always thought of them as one of the same, but I see what you're saying. I
it's a
always
little
thought
bit different, not
the
big
two as-
difference, but
okay, no, but it's good. The guy who translate this one, whoever it was, also says envy. Did you guys also say envy?
Yes.
This one says jealousy.
It's so far 3 translations say envy, 1 say jealousy. So I'll go with envy. But either way, so he is clearly, at least in this paragraph, talking about envy of someone else having something that I don't have, right? However, just like and like I said, jealousy will make the fool die. It'll kill him. It'll drag you down to your grave, your whole life. Just being jealous of what the other guys have and you don't have, and you just get that'll be the end of you. And what will you have achieved? Nothing, right? There are some that are so stupid and so foolish and so ignorant. Right? If he sees that his friend has any kind of good fortune, right? Whatever that might be, he will be like his body will be consumed, right? V'yidagen, he will be worried. V'yitzta'er, he will be pained. Ad she'afilu hatovo shebiyado, to the extent that he won't even be able to lo yahanu. He won't be able to get any pleasure or benefit or derive basic satisfaction out of the things that he does have, right? Out of whatever benefit, right? So if I have a house, right, and then I get jealous of my neighbor who has a bigger, nicer house, right? So it's one thing to be jealous, to be envious, to be envious, right, of my friend, right? But at least I go home, I sit on my couch and I watch TV, and the heat is on, and I have a nice shower with hot water, and I have a bed. I go to sleep. I have a kitchen. I can make food, So I enjoy eating dinner and sitting on my couch, right? But then there are some people that are so focused and so envious of others that they can't even enjoy what they do have. And they sit on their couch. They're angry that it's not as nice as the neighbor's couch. When they cook in their kitchen, it's not as good. He has a fancier oven than I do. He can afford a fancier steak than I can afford, so on and so forth. And you can't enjoy anything, right? So because of what he sees the other guy having. That this is what it says in Proverbs, that envy makes one's bones rot. That's like, it literally gets to the depth of your bones. So those are the two levels. But then there are others. They don't have so much pain that they literally can't enjoy sitting in their living room, right? Nonetheless, but they do feel pain, right? They do feel some level of pain. Or at least yiskarer rucham, their spirit gets cooled off. In other words, it's like they get slightly depressed. When they see someone else gain something, right? If assuming that person isn't like his total best friend or lover or something like that, where he might not feel as envious of that other person. But certainly he gets upset when he sees someone else achieve something if he's not one of his close friends. Especially if he's a migrant from some other country and he achieves some special thing and he gets rich, you're going to get jealous of him because he's not one of you, right? So when you see, them having a job or them having a car, or and they're not one of you, that gives you pain. It makes you feel bad inside. This is another level of jealousy. Right? And you'll see, right? Even when they say things as if they're happy, and say, "Oh yeah, sure, good for him," right? But you can tell that deep down he might say, or they might even say thank you, or they might say, congratulations, but inside they're really thinking that they don't really want to congratulate him, right? But inside their heart is depressed, right? And this is something that happens to most people, right? How often do we really, the Yiddish term is to fargin. There is no good English term for this that I'm aware of. To fargin somebody something. Fargin means to truly feel good for them, right? Right? When something happens to them, if they have a nice house or whatever, you fargin them the house. In other words,
You're legitimately happy.
You're legitimately happy for them, I'd like to think back to the few moments in our lives when you actually were happy for someone else. And imagine if we felt that way all the time when other people have good things. Every once in a while, most of us have somewhere in our heart something good, right? and we actually see, I saw that person, he or she went through so much craziness and so much suffering, and look, I don't even feel good. Look at him now. He made it through, he got, and I'm so happy that he has what he needs and whatever. So if only we could look at everyone that way, imagine if our whole lives we went through that, looking at things that way. But most people, they might not be consumed by jealousy like those first categories that we mentioned. They're not nikiim. They're not completely perfect in this issue of avoiding jealousy. Because remember, this chapter is about being a nuki. It's about getting rid of these evil traits from our souls. And certainly, right, when someone in my own trade, like let's say you and I are in the same field, right, and you have your billboards all over town, and you have 70 million followers on the internet, and everybody's coming to buy whatever it is that you're selling, and I do the same thing, right? But I can't afford a billboard, and I have 7 followers, right? And I'm struggling to pay my bills, and you're making it rich. We're doing the same thing. So how much more are we jealous? You know, the guy who was in my med school class, and he's the head chairman of this, and that. And I'm a guy sitting out here trying to figure out how to make it work. You know, but we were in the same class. We took the same exams. We got the same scores, you know, but that's life. So how much, when we see that, we're so much more prone to jealousy. If that friend is more successful doing the same thing that we're doing. However, right, we need to understand, and he's going to say, how do we overcome jealousy? Is we need to understand that we each have our place in this world, and none of us are meant to have what other people have. We each have our own set of challenges, our own set of joys and sorrows. And that's the way it is. Most people don't understand, and they don't take to heart. If something is meant for a friend, right, that thing is not meant to me. That's even like a hair's breadth. That's not for me to get. Whatever was, I'm going to say it this way, even though it's not 100% what he means, but whatever is destined, we use the word destiny, it kind of has connotations which he doesn't really mean here, but what the challenges and the benefits and whatever it is that my friend has are not things that are meant to be mine. He has his own set and I have my own set, right? This is all the way God created the world. It's all from God. He set it up this way that we all navigate through our own sets of challenges in life. According to God's wisdom, and the type of wisdom of God, which is wisdom that we cannot ever understand. So why is it that it seems to me that I did ABC and my friend did ABC, and my friend is a multimillionaire, and I'm struggling to pay my mortgage? We're never going to figure that out if we look at it that way, right? If we understand them, then we wouldn't feel pain when someone else says something good. We would be happy for them. This is what the prophet testifies for us, or more, not so much, not testifies in the sense of like a witness, but what the Navi, the prophet, prophesies, I guess is the best word. Foretells. Oh, that's a better word. Thank you. Yeah, because the prophecy, this is just a total side note because I mentioned that, it's a very, very poorly translated in Hebrew to English. Because in Hebrew, the word Navi, which is usually translated as prophet, Navi means a speaker, one who says, right? He says truth, right? But a Navi, linabot, is to speak in Hebrew, right? And somehow it ends up in prophecy. So people have this weird idea that a prophet is someone who tells the future, right? Because in English, when you use the word prophet, it's someone who's predicting the future. Now, the fact is that if you look at the prophets of the Bible, almost none of those prophecies came true, right? Because all of those prophecies were, if you X, then Y, right? If you A, then B, right? If you repent, God will save you from it. But how many times did people listen to the prophet? Virtually never. So a few cases that Jonah is famous as one of the only prophets who people actually listened to him. So, but the crazy thing about him is that his prophecy didn't come true, right? He said the city would be destroyed, right? And it wasn't, because the people were repentant. So again, it just illustrates the point again, that the point of a prophecy is it's not a foretelling of a future. It's telling you what the consequences are of your actions. If you read the Bible carefully, if you read the Torah carefully, you'll see this every single time. If you don't believe me, open it up tonight, right? You'll see the prophet is telling us what are the consequences of your actions. If you live this way, this is what's going to happen. If you live that way, this is what's going to happen. If you don't, ABC. If you do, XYZ. Anyway, so that this is totally off the subject, but I just had to say that. So that was why it was foretell is a much better. So, because here he's talking about the prophet foretold us about the time of the future, what's going to be in the future. So here we have the prophet is actually foretelling a future event, right? Right? That in order, right, for the good of the people of Israel to be complete, to be full, to be real and complete, it has to be preceded by God helping us remove from our hearts and souls, right, this terrible trait of jealousy. And in other words, we won't achieve the future redemption until we manage to expunge envy. I'm sorry, I keep saying jealousy, but envy from our hearts, right? Right? So that none of us will feel pain just because somebody else has something good. Right? When a person is successful, we know many times, and I'm sure that's happened to us, when we are successful, we don't tell our friends about it because we know that they're going to get upset, they're going to get angry and jealous. They might pretend to be happy, but they won't. So in a perfect world, no one will hide these things because no one will be afraid of jealousy. Those that are jealous of Ephraim, of the people of Israel, and those that make the people of Judah suffer, they will be cut off. Ephraim lo yikaneas Yehuda, Yehuda lo yitzaz Ephraim. Ephraim, that's a reference to the northern 10 tribes, with Yehuda, which is the southern 2 tribes, which had a civil war and they split between each other and were constantly hating each other and fighting with each other. There will be no such strife between those 2 groups. Hu hashalom v'yashalva shalom al cheshar, is that kind of peace, a peace that comes without kina, without jealousy, is the kind of peace that angels have, that the servants of God, the angels have. Asher kulam shmechem b'avodasim, each one is happy with his job, with his role. Each on makom, each person in his place. Nobody is jealous of the other one. Ki kulam yodim ha'emes la'amitu, they all know the truth, right? The ultimate way to get rid of jealousy is by seeking truth, right? And as long as we all can seek truth and access truth and know truth, there's no reason to be jealous of other people. And therefore, they are ecstatic about the good asher biyadim that they have, and they're happy with their own portions. V'tira, and you should, and you need to know. Okay, so this is kind of starting as another topic, so I'll stop for comments. But this is the issue of jealousy, and the key thing that he ends here with is that jealousy is the key to redemption, right? The ultimate peace on earth that we're all looking for, hoping for, praying for, will only come when we aren't jealous of each other, when one nation isn't jealous of another nation, when one person isn't jealous of another person, when we realize that we all have a role to play, we all have our place, and we appreciate what we do have. That's when the future redemption happens. And that was how he ended his discussion on jealousy. The next subject he's going to talk about is desire and lust. It's not specifically sexual lust, because we talked about that a couple of weeks ago, but just the desire for things, for good, for whatever. Well, that's next. But let's stop here for a minute and talk a little bit about jealousy, if there's any comments, observations.
I'd like to register an objection for the record.
An objection? Okay, fire away.
He's
an attorney for those that don't know.
The rationale that God has distributed everything, and that we shouldn't be envious because of what we perceive. Excuse me, I got this is okay. We should be envious because of what we perceive as the unjust distribution of goods and services.
Right.
That is used as a rationale in many circles, including those that you can see on the news every day, that the billionaires deserve what they have, the multimillionaires, you guys who are complaining when billionaires move out of California to escape a 5% tax.
Right.
They don't realize that we, the billionaires, this is the way God meant it to be. So I know that's not what they're saying here, but it's certainly used in that. I have to turn off my phone. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Okay,
That's
I'm going to leave the floor to respond. So go ahead.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we're.
oh,
You want to say something?
No, Billy, and then
I would say that I think people wouldn't be have such negative feelings towards it if people weren't suffering as a consequence. So I'm more thinking about what it means to my brother than what it means to this other person.
Like if they're being selfish about the needs that they have, kind of.
like what can I if I paraphrase it, tell me if it's what you meant. Like it's not. It's one thing to be happy about someone else's fortune, right? But if their fortune comes at other people's expense,
Misfortune.
Yes.
then it's a different ball game.
Yeah, it's
Right?
the misfortune that others feel.
Right. So if like he said about the two people that have the same profession, right? It's one thing if he happens to be more successful than me. It's another thing if he's successful because he's stealing my customers, or doing something underhanded or something
But
illegal.
then that's a little different than being envious of somebody.
Right. Exactly. Right.
If they're doing, then there's a grievance. I mean, that's a little bit different.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's definitely one important response. What, Joseph, I think you wanted to say something.
yeah. So I've waited, I guess, 3 weeks now to answer Jeff's question. I was going to answer in private, but I think this is appropriate.
okay.
I had very, very angry growing up. I started being very angry when I was 10, and the whole world was wrong, and I was, of course, right. And so, I definitely recognize this. But what Jeff actually asked, what we did about it was, I bottled it, literally. I am now a member of AA for the last 13 years, but before that, I didn't even know that I had a choice. And that's what I did with my anger and with my pride and with my, I'm right and you're all wrong, and since I can't do anything about it and I can't control you, even though I probably want to, then that's it. So it also applies to what we talked about last time, which was about leadership and finding ourselves in a very lonely place, because we know that on the one hand we're not allowed to hurt other people's feelings, but on the other hand, they're sometimes causing grief that in our position of leadership, like this example about the two businessmen, can be very easily solved. The rabbi, gabbai, whatever, can go over to the two people and say, "Listen, Hashem already promised whatever promise He'll give you this year. If you honestly, like you said, Saul, if you're honestly just better, then fine. But if it's because I'm stealing your customers, then it's our job to not say it publicly because that will be against halacha. But we are obligated to not keep that inside because we have to do halacha, right? So
Yeah. So it's and the key is not taking those actions out of jealousy, right? But doing it because it's the right thing to do. Like we said, similar with anger. It's don't do it
yeah.
out of anger. Stop, think, and then do the right thing. I think, yeah, you're gonna say something, or
Me,
Yeah.
I was thinking how if you conceal your achievements or whatever because you don't want to make someone else jealous or something. I mean, where does that hit humility? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, can you just be a humble person so you're not going to brag?
Well, in a world without jealousy, you can be humble, and it's not bragging,
Yeah.
right? Like something is only being perceived as bragging because in a world where everyone's vying to be better than everyone else, right?
Yeah.
But in a world where it's not about being better than the next guy, it's just about being happy in your own lane.
Yeah.
Then there's then humility doesn't lead to not talking about your achievements.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a world which is hard to imagine, but I think we can kind of imagine it. We can try.
Well, I mean, people that we love and we're around a lot, and I mean, like we're that comfortable where we can not be boastful, but be like, hey, I did this or whatever, It's
someone who's truly happy with your success,
mm-hmm.
And you're truly happy with their success. Any other observations about jealousy. Then the next one is going to be long, so there's no way I can get through it, but we can start it. And vitir et, and you will observe, you will notice if you think about it, right? Ki achot hakina, the sisters, in plural, of jealousy are chemda vitava, which are two different words. Chemda is a desire for something.
So we got it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And tava is usually, it's more powerful. I guess lust is.
That's what we
But
got.
right in English, the way I usually see lust as usually having sexual connotations, but here it's not necessarily. It's that too, but not necessarily that. But just a really deep desire for things. So this exhausts, right? It tires out a person's heart and soul until the day he dies. The desire for things, the desire for something. He's going to lay out what kinds of things that we desire that literally drag us to our graves. As the rabbis teach us, Ein Adam Meis, a person doesn't die having achieved the satisfaction of half of his desires. In other words, all of us will end up in the grave before we achieve even half of the things we wanted to, right? So that's what they're saying. Right? Yeah. The omnam, ikar hatava, the primary lust, the primary desire that we have, pona l'shnei rashim. It really goes into two categories of things. And remember, he talked about sexual things before. So when he's talking about lust and desire here, he's talking about material things. So echad hu hamamon, one of them is money, v'asheni hu hakavod, and the other one is honor, right? Shneim ke'echad ro'im ma'od. The desire for both of these things are very bad. V'gormim la'adam ro'os rabos, and they cause all kinds of bad stuff for us. Our desire to be wealthy and have more money than everyone else, and our desire to have an honorable position and be honored more than everyone else. Hine, behold, chemdas hamamon, the desire for money. He ha'oseres osam, right? That is what it binds us, it ties us. So l'asar is a person who's in prison. It imprisons us. The ma'asar ha'olam, in the prison of the world, or in the chains of the world, right? V'nosenes avosos ha'amal, and it puts the chains of work and labor via asek alzer osa, and constant labor on our arms. It exhausts us because constantly trying. If we we spend so much time trying to get more money, more wealth, that we exhaust ourselves in the pursuit of it, right? And it's like a jail. It's like, and I think we can all simply understand this. The desire for more and more pushes us to not live our lives, and to be so preoccupied with the pursuit of wealth, right? As the verse in Kohelet says, if the Yassi, one who loves money, will never be satisfied with money. Will never be able to sit down and say, you know what, I could pay my bills. It's time for me to sit down and enjoy the family, right? You're never going to get there. This is what it takes us away from worshiping God. It takes us away from using our time in much more productive pursuits. Kihine, kama tfilos ne'avados. How many prayers are, time that we should be engaged in prayer to become lost. The kama mitzvos, and how many good commandments, things that we should be doing. Nishkachos are forgotten. Mipnei rova esek, because we're too busy in business. Right? Vigias hamon haschora, and we're laboring in all this business and transactions back and forth, and kol shekein Talmud Torah, and certainly taking out the time to study Torah, right? How much time have we wasted pursuing wealth? The rabbis taught us, lo me'ever le'ami. The Torah is not, when it says the verse in Devarim, which has a little bit of a different meaning, but Chazal, the rabbis in their cute way, always then the words of different meaning. And where it says the Torah is not me'ever layam, it's not across the sea, it's not up in the heavens, it's in your mouth. It's there, it's accessible to you. So they understood it this way. But the Torah is not found on those people that are traveling across the seas on business trips. A person that spends too much time in work, he's not going to become wise. It puts him in all kinds of dangers and risks. It exhausts his physical strength because he's constantly worried and nervous about the markets, about the deals that he's making, about the conditions of whatever product he's selling. Even after he's achieved a lot of wealth. As we said, the more property you have, the more you have to worry about. Oftentimes it causes you to violate the Torah, and occasionally it causes you to violate even those things, not just the mitzvos like shaking a lulav or wearing tzitzis, but even the logical, reasonable commands, mitzvot that are natural that we should know, like how to be nice to somebody, how to be honest. The desire for money drives us away from even the things which we should know better. Yisera Allah, but even worse than that, even worse than the desire for money is the desire for honor. And this is interesting, but I think it's really true if we look around the world. People, as much as people like money, they like honor even more. A person might succeed in having enough property, enough wealth, right? And enough of whatever other pleasures it is in this world that he's seeking. But it still bothers him that he's not honored, that he's not the one in top, he's not the best guy, he didn't get the biggest award. He didn't.
I was thinking that.
Yes.
Is the Nobel Prize part of that?
That's what somebody said. Yes. Because he can't see himself ever be in any way less than the next guy, right? It can't possibly be that there's someone else out there who's better than him in something. So many people have stumbled on this and became ruined because of it. And then he's going to bring examples, which we'll study next week. It's worth while reading the story in Malachim, in the book of Kings 2, the story of Jeroboam, which led to the split in the kingdom of Israel, and how his desire for honor was the driving force that caused the split in the nation, and what eventually ended up in civil war and disaster, which arguably the repercussions continue to this day. And Jeroboam was his pursuit of honor. That's the example he's about to give, but we'll do that next time because we're about to hit our time limit. But if there's any comments, I'm opening the floor. These are comments, and the recording is still going.
Just so you know.
And if everybody's good and there's no questions, we'll God willing, we'll see you all in 2 weeks. I guess it's the 3rd of February. Yeah, 3rd of February. All right. Oh wait, there is a question, Yosef. Go
Not
ahead.
a question, a remark. That for the last 24 hours, the whole yeshiva has been studying Kas.
Not anger.
Last night in Rabbi Tzal's class, and there was even a kerfuffle between him and was it seven?
You're not supposed to be kerfuffles if you're learning about anger. But okay.
Anyway, and then we talked in Rashi class today about Moshe's Kas on Paro. It says that he left Bachoriaf, and so anyway, it's great that we all are in sync.
We're all on the same page. There must be a reason. God must have been teaching us about anger, because unfortunately, there's too much of it in the air.
For sure.
All right.
Yes,
All right. Everyone have a wonderful evening. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you, Saul.
Yes.